I want you to know that you matter. Yep, I said it. You. Not anybody else, but you. You matter. When you wake up in the morning, I want you to know what you do matters. When you brush your teeth in the morning, I want you to know that you matter. When you iron your clothes in the morning and you don't feel like getting out of bed, I want you to know that you matter. I want you to understand that you matter because what you do could change somebody's life and the trajectory of what they can overcome. I want you to know that you matter because nobody ever told me that I mattered. I want you to know that you matter because you got people that's dependent on you right now. You may have some kids. You may have some younger siblings. You may have mom, dad, grandma, auntie. There's somebody out there that's dependent on you. So I want you to know that you matter. You have the ability. And you have the tools and the power and all of the amazing characteristics that are on the inside of you are ready to come out and come to fruition and ready to see you walk in your purpose and who you were called to be and what you were called to do. Because you and I are the aspirin to somebody's headache. How long you gonna let them suffer? So I want you to know that you matter. Because I remember my 8th grade teacher told me I'll never be anything in life. I'll either be dead or in jail. So I want you to know that you matter. I'm telling you that I'm dependent on you because you matter. And nobody can tell you what you can't overcome if they never been through it. So I want you to trust the process. I want you to stay 10 toes down. I want you to understand that you can prove them wrong because I want you to know you matter. So I need you to stay 10 toes down when all you have is you. All it takes is an ounce to believe in yourself. All it takes is an ounce to have the ability to recreate history and make it happen. Because you can't dream all day with no action. So I'm challenging you with staying 10 toes down because you may feel like nobody supports you because they told you that it would never happen. I need you to stay 10 toes down because you have the ability to do it. You can turn your dreams into a reality. You have the ability to leave a legacy. And I need you to stay 10 toes down because I'm dependent on you to turn your dreams into a reality. I need you to stay 10 toes down when nobody is clapping for you. I need you to stay 10 toes down when your back is against the wall and you have no choice or no opportunity, so you gotta come out swinging. Because I support you. I'm rooting for you. I'm cheering for you from the sideline. I'm your biggest fan. I'm telling you that you can do it. I'm telling you that you're phenomenal and amazing and that you have the ability to recreate history because I know that you can stay 10 toes down. You know, one day I asked God, I said, why are you taking me through troubled waters? Because he told me my enemies can't swim. So I need you to stay 10 toes down when nobody is cheering for you. The elevator is broke and you got to take the stairs to be successful. So I need you to stay 10 toes down because if it was easy, we know everybody would do it. I remember when my dad would call my grandmother, and my grandmother would tell me that my father was coming to get me, and I would be so excited, and all the emotions and all the feelings that I had, and he never came. I stood at the screen door for 2 or 3 days waiting on my father, hoping and wishing that he would come, and he never came. So I told myself as I got older that one day I'm gonna have kids, and my kids will never know what it feels like not to have their father, because I know what it feels like. I know what the heartbreak feel like. I know the emotions and the feelings and the thoughts and everything that you're going through. So I want you to know that you matter. I remember when my 8th grade teacher told me I'd never be anything. I remember when I got molested at 10 years old by my babysitter. I remember when my mom would text me, and she would text me at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and tell me they putting a taser to my head. Do you feel that? But I still had to understand on what my calling and what my purpose was, because I had to understand that I matter.
Can't hear you. So I can't hear you.
here. About now, can you guys hear me now? Well, that stinks. I mean, nobody can hear me. Try again, Johnny. Let's see here. That's never good when you're doing a TV show and nobody can hear you. Let's do this again. All right. About now, can you guys hear me now? All right, we need to see. Well, that stinks. I mean, nobody can hear me. Try again, Johnny. Johnny, we're going to have you come back in here. Let's see here. Sorry about that, guys. I don't think it sounds like nobody could hear me for a little bit there. So when you're doing your own thing here, let's see here. Let me tell Johnny to try again. Let's do all this over again. All right. Well, that's kind of crazy. We may have to edit out the first part of that, but I just need to make sure people can hear me. So whoever's on right now, if you can put a comment, can you hear now? Let's see if we can try this again. So, all right. I think Johnny's getting ready to come back in. Well, that stinks. If none of that I just said a minute ago, anybody could actually hear. So let's see what happens at this juncture. Right now, let's go check out. That is quite a bummer. Hopefully this whole thing was not silenced. Not sure what's going on. Hey, if you guys are listening right now, can you tap in the comment section if you can hear me now or not? That would be wonderful because I was just informed that somebody could not hear what I was saying. So, all right, Johnny, can you hear me now? Yeah, all right. No idea what happened there. That's crazy. I'm just chit-chatting with myself, I guess. So, hey, Johnny.
How are you, man? Sorry about that.
No, I don't know what the heck happened. I was just sitting there going on, and before you hopped on, I was just talking about. I showed a little motivational interview that was just talking about you matter, and how important. And one of the topics that came up over the weekend, as I was listening to a talk and a sermon, was just talking about how so many people feel unessential.
Yeah.
Because they've been deemed like unessential because, hey, you're a hairdresser. You're not essential. You can't go to work and all of those kind of things, And I was just talking about, if people didn't hear that before, I think it's important just to kind of give people a snapshot is that, it's such a great time now to really reflect on who the heck we are, and what's important. Our jobs can go away. And if that defined who we were before, well, guess what? Now we're an unemployed person and we have no value. So really just want to talk about like not letting our circumstances define who we are and just, figuring out from where we get value. So Johnny, obviously I know you and probably a lot of people listening probably know about you too, but tell people like, what's Johnny King up to these days and how are you helping people feel essential?
Yeah, the 30,000 foot view. First off, thank you for having me on. This is fun.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
It's super fun. 30,000 foot view is that I'm a men's coach. I still coach plenty of women and had been coaching women for the last 8 or 9 years prior to this, but now I'm kind of more focusing on men, which is awfully an interesting time to be supporting guys. I do men's meetings every single month, which you've had we had the honor of having you as a guest one of the months, and I've been doing workshops and retreats and masterminds and just building a community here in Denver that seems to be growing outside of Denver and just getting more guys to plug in and support each other rather than go through it alone.
Yeah, well, it's awesome what you're doing. I remember back when you first started and I saw your stuff on Facebook and I was like, hey, dude, let's go grab some coffee. And next thing you know, we were hanging out at whatever that place was called up in Belmar, having a cup of coffee, but just hearing like the passion behind what you're doing and just kicking that to today, because you have a once a month Monday night actual meeting with men. It used to be in person, but now it's online. But you're a shifter and an adjuster in that regard. So how's that kind of grown? Like, what are you seeing with guys? Let's talk about like right now today. Like, what are they dealing with?
Well, probably not hugely surprising, but I feel like, I had a webinar yesterday and I asked, like, the very first question I asked was like, first, A, can you hear me audio wise? And B, what's the biggest challenge going on with COVID, generally speaking, I'd say of all the guys, 20 to 30 guys that were on, was like, either if they have no family, the isolation and the loneliness is wreaking havoc. Or if they do have, say, a significant other or maybe even the kids, that's wreaking havoc, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, damned if you do, damned if you don't. And I think being out of routine is a pretty big thing for guys. You're normally getting up and having coffee and going to work and then coming home, and like being out of routine, and then maybe other unhealthy coping mechanisms are coming into play, whether it be drinking or watching too much Netflix or overeating, all those things. Right. So.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And for everyone listening right now, throw a comment in there of maybe what you're seeing with people down there too, of, if you've known someone maybe directly and like impacted by their income just went away during this COVID-19 thing. But, we like engagement. So put some comments in there about, maybe some things that you are seeing also, and you also know where people are coming from. So, so I want people to hear about what you're doing, because after you and I chat for a little bit, April Hawley's going to talk about some things that she's doing with women around the country as well, and just encouraging them and stuff. But your group has grown significantly. And there's a reason for that, because guys are craving what?
They're craving a lot of things, but I think one of them is just brotherhood. That's definitely one of those things. And I can speak to it too. I mean, I think that's a big part of why I started the group, was that I knew I could continue to grow my business virtually, but just in terms of a human being, like I needed more interaction. And I only had one or two. I mean, I have so many great friends all across the world, but very few of them actually lived here in town. So first and foremost, I needed the brotherhood, Secondarily, I needed, some guys to go on adventures with. So that was a big part of it too, was adventure. But then just to be around like-minded men to validate what we're feeling and what we're going through isn't, isolated to just me or just that guy. I think that's probably one of the biggest ahas of guys coming into the meeting for the first time. It's like, I didn't realize I wasn't alone. I think that's the big part. It's just starting conversations around men's mental health, so that we all kind of can start that conversation and chime in together and level up together, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it totally does. I mean, every one of my clients that I coach, I tell them about what you're doing on Monday nights, because what it's usually Monday nights when we're actually physically together, which hopefully will be coming soon. Who knows?
Yeah.
Is it the first, second, third, fourth? Which one is it?
I usually like the middle Monday of the month, as close to the 15th as possible.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So how do people connect with you to find out this info? Because I want them to know that too, and then we'll talk a little more what we're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, if they're on Facebook, whether they're on Facebook or not, if you go to meetingofmen.com, that'll take them always to my upcoming men's meeting. If you're not on Facebook, you can always just connect with me on johnnyking.com or follow me on Instagram at johnnyking. There's plenty of information there to get plugged in.
Yeah. So meetingofmen.com. There you guys go. It's right there in the bar. But it's talking about this thing of connection, because this weekend when I was thinking about this, I was thinking of, as we're disconnected from people and some people feeling unessential, we start checking ourselves on like, where do we get our worth from? What gives us that internal kind of worth right there? So what has your own personal work been on feeling okay with Johnny sitting in his wonderful house all by himself in moments of just complete silence?
I would be lying if I were to say that it's been easy. I would say that I really didn't start to connect with my own value and self-worth until I was like 35, but I had been doing a lot of personal development since like 2009, roughly. And I was in a developmental kind of experiential personal development course, right? We were doing like outdoor activities, and I just started seeing that everyone kept validating me. Everyone was believing in me except me. And I think a lot of times we'll do that. It's like our experience of ourselves a lot of times is not the experience that everyone else has of us, right? And for better or for worse, sometimes that's a challenge, because we kind of do feel like we're falling into that imposter syndrome, right? We're like, oh, we're pulling the wool over people's eyes, and if they actually knew what went through my head, or the things that I would do that are maybe like in our shadow, excuse me, they would not appreciate, right? And we talked about that when you were talking to the men too. It's like it's just interesting how that shame piece comes up, And that shame really tends to feed on itself and grow in secrecy. So a big part of starting to find your own self-worth actually is to have conversations, which is why I'm facilitating that with other guys. It's like, let's get it first out to the open. And when you get it out to the open, you realize it's actually not as big and hairy and scary as we think it is. Right.
Yeah.
And then through that, I think with people talking to us, we think that if we tell them all of our dirty laundry, they're going to like disregard us and pass us off. In most cases, unless you're working with unhealthy individuals, most times people will be a lot more empathetic and loving and vulnerable in return. And that creates a place that you're like, oh, okay. And you start to have that for yourself as you do for others. It's just like a healing process. So.
Yeah, it's funny when you get in a group of people and you start talking about your life and the things I'm going through, and you realize you're really not that unique in so many ways. You're like, oh, wow. Because I was talking to someone recently and I just said, I don't think I have ever come up with one brand new emotion that only I deal with.
Yeah.
And when you bring guys together, I mean, I love it. And I wish I could attend more. It was, I was really bummed after I was able to speak at yours. Like every Monday night I was taking this online coaching course of just, continue to grow my own personal growth. Right. And it was on those Monday nights, and that was a bummer. But I recently got to your Larry Wall talk, and you've had some great guys come because it is talking about this thing of connection. And we think we're just so unique, but really, I mean, our situations are kind of have maybe a different headlines, but they're kind of the same stuff.
Well, and isn't it interesting how like that was probably my biggest aha when I went to my very first Tony Robbins event, which was, oh my God, there's 4,500 of us. We're all sitting on the edges of our seat, captivated by Tony, as if he's talking directly to me. I'm crying. I'm nodding my head like it's all resonating. And I'm looking around like everyone is nodding, crying, because we're all freaking robots of how, the humans go about being kind of just like fit into a box as we kind of grow up, just avoiding pain, seeking pleasure. And it's not until that aha that I realized we're all so much more similar than we are different. And if you can break out of that mold of like kind of robotically living your life, that's when you actually get to tap into your gifts. It was when I was just going to work, trudging away, kind of just checking off the boxes of how I was raised, I thought to be, or to seek happiness. I had no idea what my passion was. I had no idea what direction I was going in life. It wasn't until I had to, my whole life imploded for me to finally wake up and be like, okay, I didn't even want that in the first place. Why was I fighting for that? And that's when I started to design my life the way I wanted it to be, So.
Yeah. Well, because if we don't kind of define who we are ourselves, someone else or something else is going to do that.
Ain't that the truth?
Right. And so figuring out like, what is that thing? I want to challenge everyone that's like watching right now is to take this time of reflection, right? And think about what is it that really kind of defines who you are? Because again, when we're isolated at our house doing Zoom calls all the time, I mean, talk about Zoom trauma for a lot of people. It's just like, oh gosh, another Zoom call. You've got to be kidding me. But I think just reminding people that you're valuable, that you're extremely valuable. I mean, God made every single one of us in a unique way. And we have unique gifts that we can offer everyone out there. And so here's a question for you. So when people ask you, who are you? Like, what's your immediate thought when people say, hey, Johnny, who are you?
My first initial thought will go to the way that we've been trained, which is like, oh, I'm a men's life coach. I'm an athlete. But really at the end of the day, I mean, I've done enough work to know that I'm all synonyms of God just in the human expression of it, right? I'm God's manifestation. And I like to think of that as like, if God is the sun, then we are its rays. We are what, allows us to feel warmth and give that warmth away and to love other people. We're synonyms, we're expressions, spiritual qualities, having that human experience at the moment.
Yeah. The human experience is pretty awesome. Well, I'm looking at my phone. I'm texting April. Let her know we'll bring her on in a couple minutes.
Sure.
And because it's kind of new for some people doing StreamYard and stuff like that too. It's like you sit in the green room and you see the person, but some people think they're actually on. I'm not saying that's her situation, but it's kind of fun. Like when I do this sober open mics online, You kind of see artists lined up, and then they're all just kind of waiting patiently and all that stuff.
It's pretty cool, the technology.
Yeah.
And one thing you
totally
mentioned, just about people's passion that I'll chat about real quick too, is that one of my one of my past coaches I had, very much a Christian man and one of my greatest mentors, he told me, like, I was talking about, I just want to find my passion. And he was like, well, where does that even originate from? I was like, I don't know. He's like, have you ever seen The Passion of the Christ, the movie? I was like, yeah, a long time ago when it first came out. He's like, and I might butcher this a little bit, but more or less what he told me is like, the passion comes from Christ's passion was the thing that he was willing to sacrifice everything for. It was for us. It was his passion, because if you have a passion, that means it's not like, oh, I'm so excited about this. It's not even like excitement as it is like, I'm so committed to it that I'm willing to sacrifice even my life for it. Right. And so when people are looking for their passion, I'm often coaching them. It's like, oftentimes our areas of our greatest wounding is the area of potentially your greatest passion. Right.
Totally.
And so that's where it's come from for you, for me, right? For most people, it's like, I've been through this tragedy or this trauma, I've healed myself, and I want to support other people in that same healing process, So that's kind of where I've come from in terms of the whole passion conversation.
Yeah. Well, yeah. When I was a kid, when you were kids, I wasn't sitting there thinking like, well, I want to work with people with addictions and people that are getting out of prison. Or you sitting there, I want to help guys with, that struggle with men's issues and things like that too. And you mentioned kind of a biblical reference to the Passion of the Christ. And this weekend, which kind of stirred up this whole, you feel unessential, during these times when you've been deemed unessential, was it talks about, the fruit that we bear in our life, right? The fruit that we bear in our life is either going to attract people or repel people, right? And we have to figure out, like, where's the food coming from that's feeding that fruit? It talks about, how we're the branches and God's the vine, at least in my faith, and the fruit that can come out of that is either going to be one you want to eat or one you could just care less about because it's just ugly and it stinks and it has pesticides all over it and all those things. Right. So finding that grounding, I think, is important for everybody.
Right. I will watch the same sermon, and it's so powerful because it's like, how they say, it's like when you squeeze an orange or you squeeze a lemon, what do you get from it? But you have lemon juice or orange juice, right?
Yeah,
so it's like, why you've got to work on what's going on the inside of you and heal what's going on the inside of you is paramount before you start to be able to impact other people. Because when you get squeezed, and we're all getting squeezed massively right now in every certain way, it's like you ultimately get to see kind of what we're made of right now, right? And it's raw and it's sometimes nasty looking, but those are little signposts of saying these are areas that need healing if you're showing up in ways that you're not proud of.
Yeah, you're exactly right. So that's awesome, man. Well, I love what you're doing to encourage guys. We're gonna have a female's perspective coming on here in just a second with April, who's hanging out in the green room. I like to call it the green room. It's a lot of fun. Zoom, there's not really a green room. It's just kind of everyone's on it. But if you want to hang out for a while and come back on the end, we can kind of all three of us chat and kind of wrap up together too, unless you got to take off. But
cool. Sounds good.
Here, I'll put you back in there and I'll bring you back on in a little bit. So, all right, April, you ready? I think April's got thumbs up. I think she's ready. All right, cool. Hi, April.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How's it going?
It's good. It's good. Just trying to figure out the new norm.
Yeah, things are definitely changing now. And I mean, you and I've known about you a little bit because of Tuan, but last week I was on that fun mastermind call, and I'm like, man, I just really want to connect and just chat. And so here we are. I mean, I love your response, your response to that too. And at the beginning, I showed a little video today about, it just says, you are important, that you are valuable, that we all have a value to us. And the thing that kicked up this last weekend was just a sermon I was watching. It talks about, how just feeling unessential because we've been some people have, right? And so I just wanted to bring you on because you're an encourager and just give people an idea of like, what does April do in empowering people in your life these days?
Really, it's just showing up for yourself every single day, even on the days that you truly don't feel like it. Um, People always ask me, I wish I had your motivation. How do I get your motivation? And the real story behind that is I create it. I move my body every single day, and by moving my body creates me to have motivation. I inspire myself by literally making out a list the night before. So I'm a planner. I don't like planning, but that self-discipline allows me more freedom. So
Yeah, planning is essential. I feel like my video on my end might be glitching a little bit, but that's all right. That's just part of
it's not.
life. Okay, good. We can glitch sometimes. So so we're kind of talking about like worth also, and from where does our worth come in these times of no matter what's going on, uncertain times in our life, situation, chaos, pandemics. But where would you kind of say you kind of channel your, April's good with being April from?
You know, honestly, it's really getting close to the Lord's word. I have been reading a chapter from Proverbs every single day, and reading that has really just allowed me to dig deeper to figure out, okay, well, what does that scripture actually mean? What is it trying to say to me? It's allowed me to get very clear with seeking God's word. What He said to me is, "Be still during this time." I'm typically always busy, being busy. And he's like, no, it is time for you to be still. So about 2 weeks ago, I took up boxing, and I ended up from the movements. I was going so fast, I got whiplash in my neck. I work out every single day. Like, how is this to happen? And I said, you know what? This was my time to slow down. And instead of getting up to work out every single day, now I'm getting up to plan my nutrition, be more intentional with what I'm putting in my mind and feeding it with rich information, leadership, the word of God, stuff like that.
Yeah, well, I mean that's great too because I was just talking with Johnny as we were wrapping up about kind of like the vine, and depending on what your vine is, whether you're a believer or not, the concept here is that what you put in is what is going to bear fruit in your life. So if you have an angry, hatred heart, it's going to come out to people. If you have a heart filled with generosity and empathy and gratitude, people will see that, right? So talk more about like how important the space is between our ears, more so than really anything going on anywhere in the entire world.
So it's beyond important. Every day, I have what it's called Master Your Morning. And so I meditate. I do my daily affirmations. So I have on a piece of paper the good things about myself that I need to hear, because there are days where I'm like, I don't feel like I'm worth it. And then I say, no, you are worth an amazing life. You are meant for so much more than you're giving yourself credit. So I do my daily affirmations. I exercise, even if it's just walking. Get out and move yourself 30 minutes a day. But really, it's seeking I've gotten into a lot of Audible books, and it's called Super Attractor by Gabby Bernstein. And it's really what you put out comes back. So I believe you lead with love always. Look through the lens of love. If somebody's really angry and they're being really rude to you, I believe that it's not they're being rude to you, that there's something more going on inside of them. And by asking more questions, I uncover that they're scared, there's fear, there's all of these underlining things that's making them angry. So if I lead with love, then it pulls out the kindness in other people.
Yeah, leading with love. I love how that sounds. I mean, it just makes you
Yeah.
feel all warm and fuzzy for sure. How are you seeing that take an impact on people that you do? Tell people kind of what you do when you work with people.
So what I do is mostly my thrive is working with women that have been through all walks of life, divorce, depression, overweight, business clients. And one of the first steps that we do is we seek clarity. And seeking clarity is learning how to calm the inner and outer chaos by fixing your focus. fixing your focus by setting not just any goals, but smart goals so that they're achievable. Through that, we build up your confidence, and I have a simple yet very effective system that I use. And through that, you become the best badass version of yourself, because when you really work on the inside, the outside just slowly starts to want to match the inside. So
I love that. The inner badass. I love that. Hey, what's your website real quick? I want to type it in here so people can see it.
it's www.m, like as in Mary, 21 empowerment.com.
All right, cool. I'm going to put that in, y'all, because it's really awesome what's going on. I actually interviewed, make sure I got that spelled right. All right, cool. I actually interviewed Twan recently and had him on my podcast show, m21empowerment.com, you guys. And when you think of, like, the John Maxwell world and training people and educating people, I mean, really what you're offering people is to believe in themselves again.
Yeah. And once you get clear on that, once you know that you are worth more than the divorce you went through, the addiction. I mean, I struggled for 18 years, stuck in an addiction until I was 30 years old. December will be 8 years of sobriety. And so I call it reckless recovery. Like, I am going to be reckless in my faith. I'm going to be reckless just doing I used to do it towards the negative, and now I'm going reckless towards all the positive things. Because if I have that much determination to be able to be an ethical drug addict and an ethical drug dealer, because that's what I considered myself, because I didn't lie, I didn't steal, I didn't do anything wrong besides hurting myself. So I justified my usage by giving myself those excuses. So now I give myself amazing push by staying clean, by helping motivate and inspire other women to just be the best version of themselves.
I love that. Hey, if you guys are watching right now and you know somebody that's in recovery, again, by putting your name doesn't mean it's you, but heck, let's celebrate that too, because 8 years is just amazing when you think about the pain and talk about identity crisis.
I was always, I didn't realize it until I got my head out of the fog, but because I never really had the best growing up, I grew up in a Jerry Springer episode every single day, all of my life. I didn't really know who I was supposed to be with when I got older. I never was shown like what a healthy relationship looks like or healthy friendships, because they were so based on drugs, and most of the people around me were stealing and lying, and that wasn't who I was. So I was very conflicted. I was like, I did drugs, I didn't represent. So the way that I look today is exactly how I looked when I was using. I always made sure I was put together. I wanted people to realize that you never know what somebody's going through. You're suffering in silence. So my identity was lost in all this chaos and dysfunction. And once I realized that I didn't need that anymore, the true version of myself came out. I can talk about God without feeling like I'm offending somebody. I just lead with love now. Everything I do is just helping other people know their worth and find their value.
Yeah, because it is ugly when you don't lead with love. I mean, arguing, yelling, hatred. I mean, it is just ugly. And speaking even of that today, it's like we look at what's going on in this pandemic world, right? There's a choice of focus on, oh my gosh, like all this crazy stuff, get informed, but there's also that place of choice of overload versus focusing on what you're putting in your brain. So talk a little bit, if you want, just about, I don't know, like, let's say you're putting in all the negative COVID stuff versus like trying to love people through scripture and Proverbs, reading Proverbs and stuff like that. There's a pretty big difference in there, wouldn't you say?
There is. And it's very weird that you say this. I was thinking last night of how scared and worried people are. And whenever that thought comes in my mind, I immediately attack it with, I am healthy. Even if I do get the virus, I'm going to overcome it, because there's nothing that's been big enough for me not to overcome, because I'm just determined. So I really, as soon as negative comes in, I'm counteracting it with anything positive, because I go right back to those daily affirmations that I'm worth an amazing life. I can get through anything. I know that if it's something big, I've been through death, depression, divorce, being a drug addict, you name it, I've been through it. So bring on the sickness. I've overcome bigger things, but it's just really just pumping yourself back up and not keep the news off. Don't let people, as soon as somebody negative starts actually talking to me, I immediately turned around to like a positive, like, well, what is going right in your life? Like, who makes you happy? What makes you smile? And then that negative talk is automatically turned off because now you're leading with love. You're getting somebody to talk about what's making them happy. And then the other thing is, we are all going to have to learn to live with what's going on. So why would we stay focused on, I can't do this and I can't do that, when you can say, but I can read, I can invest in myself. If you're coming out of this pandemic the same person, then you have a lot bigger problems than you think.
Yeah, my friend Chris Pluckenball, as you say, don't let your current circumstances dictate who you are in Christ. That was his kind of thing. Because without a foundation, and again, I say people are watching right now that, I don't know what your foundation is, speaking to anyone that's listening right now, but if there is no foundation, it's just, you're just scattered everywhere. There's no roots. It's just, seeds thrown upon the rocks. Like they're not gonna grab hold. But we can have that foundation, like you're saying, is pretty awesome to do. And so I'm grateful that you answered the call to empower people, empower women and men.
It's crazy because I have seen a lot of people start drinking a lot more during this pandemic. And before this, every year I make a commitment, because I'm just a casual drinker, but because of my ability to take things overboard, I start out the new year with like a 60 or 100-day fasting from alcohol. Well, my goal is 100. I'm at 114 days right now because I did not want to feed anything back into my body that wasn't going to give me positive results. And so if I'm doing great right now, then I'm going to continue to keep doing good things. And so I'm thinking now that I'm going to fast for the entire year because I like anything that's going to push or motivate me. And foundation wise, it's an amazing thing when you become happy with who you are instead of trying to build a foundation with two empty cups. So for the last 3 years of divorce, have been just filling myself full of personal development, workouts, you name it. I'm investing in myself because nobody else is going to do it for me.
Yeah, that is great. I'm going to bring Johnny on here with us too, because we'll have the three of us on, because there's in what he does in his bringing people to more of a fitness level. I'm going to throw this out there after I bring him on, and then we can talk about what I just committed to an extent. So, all right, hold on. Let me bring Johnny on. So there's Johnny. Hey, Johnny, can you hear me?
Can hear you loud and clear.
Johnny meet April. April meet Johnny.
Hey, April.
Hello.
Yeah, y'all two are great encouragers. But so for me, it was kind of this, going on a different journey now with business and certain things like that. I'm shooting for. I'm like, what can I give up? What am I willing to commit? Not to just give up for a thing, but like more like a lifestyle change part, right? First, I said, coffee. And I'm thinking, no, I don't drink alcohol. I don't drink anything else, but I like coffee and I like, a couple other things too. But I was like, okay, sugar is one of my big things, right? Sugar's in everything, right? But then I'm like, okay, just giving up ice cream at night and grabbing candy and a Snickers bar and stuff like that. I'm willing to give that stuff up. I'm not going to like analyze all my food to the extent of sugar part, right? So I'm not going extreme, but it's more of a kind of of getting rid of the intentional sugar instead of just like having pizza with my family. Okay. So mindset and diet and lifestyle change. Let's talk about how important that kind of stuff is. Whoever wants to go for it.
Ladies first.
Thank you. This is like speaking my language. So everything is about lifestyle change, exercise. Like I literally changed my life 3 years ago. I started doing Beachbody, and then I was like, oh my God, I'm really passionate about helping myself lose weight. But then, because I'll tell you what my dad said. He said, April, you're starting to look like me, a big gut and no butt. And I was like, what? And so at that moment, I redirected my entire life, and I work out every single day. It's what I fuel myself with, because even though it's hard, that's what it feels good afterwards. So anything that, is it's worth doing. You got to keep pushing. So I live an 80-20 life. I 80% of the time do it right. 20% of the time I live life. If once a month, twice a month, I want to go on a crazy binge for a day and eat kind of reckless, I do. I just don't do it consistently, because everything you do should be in moderation, regardless of what that is in your life.
Cool. What about you, Johnny?
I'd say amen to all that. I would maybe think to flip the script too. And I think a lot of times when people think about dieting, it really is a focus on restriction and deprivation, which as human beings, we don't like things taken away from us, right? There's a part of us that's like the little 7-year-old that's like, yeah, but I want it, right? Give it back to me. So the thought is, yeah, if you're going to give up the ice cream or the coffee or whatever that is, it's hard to take away one habit without replacing it with a healthier one, right? So I usually encourage my clients to focus on like, what do you want to take on versus what are you giving up, right? So you could do them simultaneously without a doubt, but more thought of like, okay, how are you going to actually fill yourself up, and what would be a good, powerful, and empowering habit you want to take on versus just looking to give up stuff, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
And it's not like, looking at like I don't get my worth at all from how I look or what I'm doing or what I'm eating and those things. But when I feel better, like as April said before, I'm more full of love. When I'm up and down from a sugar, blah, 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 like I'm a jerk to my kids. I snap. I'm like, where'd that go? Oh, you're coming down from a crash, and finding healthy replacements. Like I love sharing this out because recovery's, a big part of like what April was talking about before too. And when I sit there and look at like, there's these drinks I drink now called Clean Cause, and it's like 8 grams of sugar in the whole thing, but it has caffeine and stuff like that too. But they give half their profits to people that need sober living, and they have a huge mission. It's an amazing thing called Clean Cause. They're sponsoring a big event we're doing next week with Free Spiritual Community, but it's all about giving back and encouraging people. So people that are tapping in right now, like, what would y'all want to say to them is if they're just tapping in now and they didn't hear stuff earlier, but just talking about, feeling essential and worthy, no matter what's going on in the country or in your life.
Go ahead, April.
I think that's a terrible mindset to even be in, because we all are important every single day, whether that's helping somebody in the grocery store, paying for somebody's groceries. You can find the good things in life if you're looking for them. If you're looking for only the negative, you're going to find them. If you're looking for the positive, you're going to find them. So it's really what you focus on is what's going to manifest. So you've got to really, as soon as those thoughts come in, you have to train them that those are not your thoughts. They're just fleeting things, and then fill them back up with love, kindness, and compassion. That's what I tell anybody. If they're mean to me, I go, are you being loving? Are you being kind? And are you being compassionate? If you're not, toodaloo.
Like that, a guy recently was talking about, I interviewed on one of my podcasts, was talking about self-compassion over self-esteem. And I thought that was a pretty powerful thing when we talk about the self-compassion piece. But what about you, Johnny?
Again, amen to all that. Where your focus goes, your energy flows, right? Yeah, I think the thought again is like where a lot of people are in suffering right now. I define suffering as kind of a mild or a wild obsession with one's needs and oneself, right? How we get out of suffering a lot of times is to focus on the needs of other people. And that's what April's saying, is like, you have to get out. Well, certainly pour into yourself, but giving out and giving is a lot of times the antidote to getting out of fear, right? So focusing on essentially helping other people rather than looking out for your own needs is going to be the way that we're all going to get through this, right? And that a role that you play that might have shifted doesn't define you. Just like a lot of women that I've worked with over the years that have, become empty nesters and they're no longer mom, essentially, right? And that can be challenging, but that's just a role they played for however long they had their kids in the house, but that doesn't define them as the only thing that they're bringing to the world, obviously. So just looking at how anyone can add value to someone else's life, I think is going to make the whole world a lot better of a place instantaneously.
Yeah, because those are roles we do, right? We fill those roles. Ultimately, we are, again, finding that core of who we are. For me, just my identity is in Christ, and that's what defines me. I get to be a husband. I get to be a father. I get to be a host of a podcast show. I get to do those things, right? And there was a phrase that Ronnie, my pastor Ronnie, said this weekend. He said, "What you do is born from what you believe." And if we don't know what we believe, man, we're just, like you said, we're that ship out in the middle of the ocean, and it's just a big crashing everywhere, and then we don't know what to do. But in the same respect, we can feel like if we're just sitting in a pond on a sailboat with no wind, that's weird too, right? So finding that balance and all that stuff. So I just really appreciate everything that both of you are doing to change the world and change people around you. Your mindsets are great. That's why I just love being around people like you, because that's what we need to be around more. And so if you guys want to go check out everything they're doing, and check out Johnny King at meetingofmen.com, and check out April at m21empowerment.com. Go find them all over social media, you guys. But just, if you know people that need encouragement, this is the place to be right here. So we'll see you next week at 1:00 Mountain Standard Time, you guys. But please share this video with your friends. And April or Johnny, anything else you want to say before we head out?
Just thank you so much. I so appreciate you having me on.
Yeah.
Ditto that. Thank you.
Cool. You guys answered the call this morning. It was perfect. So, all right, we'll catch you next time. It was pretty divine. Yep. Thanks, everybody. Catch you later. Bye.
Thank you. Yep. Bye.
All right, you guys, there you go. That was this week's episode of Beyond. I almost said Beyond the Bars Radio podcast, but that's my podcast. But really, thanks for tuning in today, everybody. We would love to get your topic ideas for future episodes. And again, if you're a musician or an artist and you want to come on and perform live during this, if I don't have one, I usually just play a motivational, inspirational video. I love doing things like this. It is great to do and be a part of. If you want to go check out what we're doing at liftedfromtherut.com, feel free to. But here to be a resource and here to help people along the way be better at what they do. And again, if you ever want to support Lifted from the Rut TV, you can always head there to support as well. Always welcome that. It keeps these things going and time and everything else. Let's see, we have a comment. Oh, there's April. April said, thank you so much. Most definitely, April. April and Johnny are awesome people. So thank you so much for being on today, guys. And hope everyone has an amazing day, amazing afternoon. Go love somebody. And just remember, you're valuable and you mean something. And, God does have an amazing purpose for your life. So we will see you next week at 1:00 Mountain Standard Time right here. Both channels, Lifted from the Rut business page and Rob Lohman's personal Facebook page. So thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next week.